Red light means recording.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel called Red Means Recording.
Is it?
There is one. It's really good.
Cool.
All right. This is the first podcast, expat locals and travelers, XLT podcast. I have David Egerton, right?
Yeah.
And Nicholas Perata, Nick
Perata. No L.
Perata. Excuse me. And yeah, here we go. So start with Dave. Dave, where are you from? How long you been here?
Okay, so I'm from South Africa, and I've been in Vietnam for 2 years and 3 months.
Nice.
Not too long.
Nick?
I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area in the United States, and I've been here on and off for approaching 10 years.
2 years is compared to 10.
Long time, on and off.
Decade. So, Nick, why did you come here?
Well, I came here because I fell in love with my wife.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were in the same business. I was a teacher and she was managing a school, and we met, and she offered me a job, and I decided to stay in the country.
Nice. But you met her here, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I just came on vacation to see the place.
Really?
And I met her, and we hit it off, and she offered me the job, and we were professional at first, and then it became a little bit more, and we ended up getting married.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And Dave?
Okay, so I started teaching online when I was in my home country, and then sort of the next step for that was to move through to China, because those were the students I was teaching. And so my girlfriend and I moved through to China, and we stayed there for 1 year and 6 months, I think. And then the next step from that was to move out of the big rush of China to somewhere a bit smaller and a bit more relaxed. So then we decided to move to Vietnam and came to Saigon. And we actually haven't left Ho Chi Minh City since.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even Vung Tau?
Oh, Vung Tau. We went to the beach.
Okay.
We went to the beach, and that was it, yes.
Is that because Corona's shut down?
Well, yeah, we were actually going to go to Moi Ne. Is it Moi Ne? Yeah, we were going to go there for the TED holiday last year, but Corona became a thing, and we just thought it was a bit too much of a risk. And then, yeah, so we've been stuck in Saigon since then.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a bit tough to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't traveled much since, last year I went Vung Tau one time.
That was when we went, right?
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
last week. Last week I went to Vung Tau, yeah. So, Nick, you're a Californian like me. So,
Yes, I am.
So when I came here, my culture shock was like California, we have a lot of Asians, so it wasn't really that much of a culture shock. I've always loved Chinese food, Vietnamese food, Thai food. So my culture shock was minimal. Like I was like, okay, cool. Now everything's not that different from California.
Right,
Not too
right.
different. How did you feel when you first came?
I had quite a bit of culture shock, to be honest. So, like you, I grew up in California. I had a lot of Asian friends. I grew up with a lot of Asian people. But most of the Asian people I knew were Chinese and Korean, and some Japanese. I didn't actually know very many Vietnamese people. And my first teaching job in Asia was in Korea. So I got very used to their culture because I felt a lot of similarities between the way they live, the way I live, their attitudes towards work and life and so many things. And not knowing very much about Vietnam or Vietnamese culture or Vietnamese people, I, being the ignorant foreigner, assumed that it would be sort of the same as Korea. So when I came here, it was radically different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the attitudes are very different. The food is quite different. The weather is appreciably different. So it was a little bit hard for me to adjust at first.
Yeah.
At first.
Yeah. Yeah, Korea gets cold and
It gets very cold.
Yeah.
I'd say like not as many motorbikes and like more regulations on traffic. Like Korea is like
Yeah.
people stop at red lights.
Yeah. Everything is by the book in Korea.
Right.
And I'm that kind of person. I'm basically pretty orderly, pretty organized about stuff. So when someone tells me there's a rule about something, I follow it. That's just how I am. But here, people are a little bit more free with the rules sometimes,
Makes it
especially when
difficult. Yeah.
driving and things like that. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but it was interesting.
Yeah. How about you, Dave? Culture shock. Well, you came from China, so
Yeah, so I'll go back to when we moved to China. So I was already sort of exposed to Chinese people before we moved through, but in the city I was living in, South Africa, there was a minute population of Asian people.
Right.
When I say Asian, I mean you've got Korean and Chinese, and that was it.
Yeah.
But there would be one Korean student at a school, and that would be our exposure to Korea. So I was already exposed to a bit of the language, Chinese language, and sort of minor aspects of their culture before we moved to China. But I think the biggest culture shock I had was the food.
Yeah.
That was something that took forever to get used to, and still today it's a struggle. More so Chinese traditional food. I think the Vietnamese traditional food is different. But for me it was the food, not so much traffic. Now I'm talking about China specifically.
Yeah.
Moving here, it was so radically different. I mean, you said the difference between Korea and here is immense. And it was the same for China in here. You know, China is a very busy, bustling sort of rat race. But here it's almost the same thing, except there's not as many cars, it's bikes. And the traffic is something to behold, and the food is definitely something to get used to.
Yeah.
But overall, I think culturally, I got used to the culture of China and the culture of Vietnam very, very, very quickly. And it's something you grow to appreciate. There's a difference between you and the culture you grew up in and the culture that's here. And you've got to embrace it. And I think that was something we did from the beginning. So the culture shock wasn't as bad. It was more like the food and the environment. I think that was the biggest shock for us. Yeah.
And so, like, what about pollution in China? Is pretty bad compared to Saigon. What city did you live in China?
I lived in Beijing. So that was probably the hub of all pollution. So it was the other day we were sitting outside our apartment, and there was this amber glow in the air. No, don't get me wrong. I still made a comment saying that I thought it's beautiful, because I do. It really adds a nice sort of ambience to the area. But that amber glow is not common here. It happens, but it's not that common.
Yeah.
In China or in Beijing specifically, that's all you see.
Yeah.
So there's this dull sort of orangey color to the sky. The sun does not look bright and yellow and white. It's orange or red.
Wow.
Living in the city.
Yeah.
And I think that was really tough. I get a lot of health problems with my sinus area, so that became an issue. You know, now during the coronavirus pandemic, everybody's wearing masks. But in Beijing or in a tier 1 city in China, you live in your mask on a daily basis. So it's a normality there. So the pollution is quite rough. The streets are fairly clean that side compared to here. But the air quality is definitely something that's far better here. It's something you appreciate a bit more, having lived in a dirty city.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Saigon's not that bad. Having been in like LA.
LA. No, Saigon is way better than LA.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure here is actually quite better.
Yeah.
The roads have fewer holes. They're better maintained. I think a lot of things are much better here than a lot of places back home.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Richmond, California. potholes. Potholes will stay there.
Well, the state of California has no money anymore.
Yep. So, okay. So how about like day to day ordering food or like ordering food, like walking around, catching taxis? Is language, like not being able to speak the native tongue here, does it make life difficult? Or for me, I don't really. A lot of people who speak English, like that work at restaurants, they could point at the menu. Or, like, I like catching Grab car because it's automatically your destination's locked in. Like I don't even catch taxis that much.
Yeah, I think it's far easier here than what I had initially expected.
Yeah.
Again, my experience before this was being in China. Nobody speaks English. The only English people you'll meet are English language teachers, so Chinese English teachers, and your students. If you go to a random shop or a supermarket or your cab driver, not a single word. They don't know it. So it was far more difficult there than it is here. I think I've yet to be at a shop or I've yet to go to a restaurant where there hasn't been somebody that speaks English. Whether it's semi-broken English or it's excellent English, there's somebody that can communicate with you, and that is so important for us as Westerners or foreigners, because obviously we need to do what we want to do. You know, we want to go to the restaurants, we want to go to the stores, and we can communicate. So it makes it easier.
Yeah.
My experience is a little bit different. I have sort of an unfair advantage because my wife speaks flawless English. So I'm kind of a lazy man sometimes, so I let her do all the ordering and organizing of things like that. But when I do have to communicate on my own, I find communication to be extremely difficult. When I was in Korea, I found speaking Korean much easier. Speaking Vietnamese is extremely hard.
Agreed.
With 6 different tones and the fact that I am tone deaf, I do not hear the difference between the tones. And when I try to articulate the sounds, when I try to make those sounds, people are very polite about it, but I know that they don't understand what I'm saying. And even when I use hand signals, body language, etc., to try to make my point clear, I get very frustrated. I feel a little bit embarrassed, and I feel disappointed in myself for not being able to speak as well. I can read quite a bit of Vietnamese, but speaking it is very challenging.
Yeah, because the locals they pretty much are surprised. If you try to speak Vietnamese, they're like, whoa, what is this guy doing? And then they're like, all right, never mind. I tried, not just hamburger, and it's like, or you go in the shop, but most of them, like, if they're telling you a price, even in like the outer line district, they'll be able to be like 10,000. They'll be able to communicate prices, like,
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think I've had many problems. So, yeah, I guess China would be much more difficult, because here, I mean, even some of the menus are in English, especially if you go to like a Western style restaurant. It's obviously the whole menu's in English.
Yeah. One thing that I'm very fearful about is because I get the tones wrong, and because there's so many words that, when written, appear to look the same. I may try to say one thing, and in fact I'm saying something else. And on several occasions, this has really backfired on me, and it's really been embarrassing because I ended up saying like some sort of swear word or something, and then I absolutely wanted to die of embarrassment because that was not my intention. Yeah, I have to be careful.
Like you're ordering a bowl of pho, and you could be ordering something completely.
Yeah, you could
different.
be ordering something different.
Horse meat? What? No, pho. Yeah. I just use the point method. This one. That's what I do. Yeah. So, you've been here 9 years, huh?
Let's see, when did I first come to Vietnam? I first came here in 2011. So April of this year will be 10 years that I first came to Vietnam. But for
Wow.
a good period of that time, my wife and I were back in America. And we've been back now for about 2.5 years. So in total, we've been about maybe 5 years in country.
And you think about moving back to America?
Well, I don't know. I mean, our home is here. My wife's family is here, and they are my family. And we've become very used to our lives here, and we're very happy here. So, yes, I have family obligations back home, and I would like to see my country again, but I don't know if we are really at that point where we can or would be willing to commit to going back to America.
How about you?
Yeah, that's. I think for you to go back home, you're talking about going back home to America. There's something there, you know, for you to do. There's a job. There's an opportunity to make something or to do something. I think for South Africans, it's a bit more. It's a bit trickier. The economy is a bit tough for somebody that's young to make something or to make something of themselves, and that would be the reason why I would not go home. Is that I would struggle more to get to the position I'm in now back in South Africa, and it would take me so much longer and probably be unnecessarily difficult than compared to here. I think here is a very comfortable life. There's everything that we need is nearby, and yeah, I think I'd have to sit and think about it really intensively if I were to want to go home, because it's not an easy decision to make. It would be more of a struggle than it would be positive, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I first came to Saigon, I went job hunting and I found 3 jobs that hired me in the first day I was looking. Like,
Yeah.
Here, like the jobs look for you. There's like posts every day on Facebook, like hundreds of jobs. Like you wanna work out in a small town, you wanna work in Saigon, you wanna work like 25 hours a week, you wanna work after work, you wanna work Sunday morning, like there's jobs are looking for you. Like back in America, you go look for jobs and then you apply and there's 40 people applying, and like here it's like they're like, please work for me. Start tomorrow, start tonight. You want to come tonight?
That reminds me of Yakov Smirnov and the Russian reversal joke. So in America, you go looking for a job. In Vietnam, the job goes looking for you. Yeah, no, I feel the same way. In America, I made more money than I make here, but my quality of life is higher here than in America. So
Yeah.
why would I knock myself out working to have a lower standard of living than I have here? It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
I just feel very comfortable here.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, like back home, your cell phone bill is like $100 a month. Like electricity be like $200-300. Here, my cell phone is like $20 a year. I took the 1 year plan. I paid $500 for 1 year, so I got a whole year's cell phone for $25. Like
Yeah.
rent here in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco, it's 10 times cheaper for the same like luxury apartment.
It's cheaper in San Francisco?
No, in Saigon it's 10 times.
Yeah.
Like it would be $5,000 for my apartment that I have right now. At
Yeah.
least $5,000.
Yeah.
And it would be in a crappy neighborhood. Here it's like $500. You got a nice 2-bedroom furnished, view, swimming pool, everything. Like yeah, so yeah, but still you're making 18 to 25. I made up to like $35 an hour here teaching English.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the money here is decent. I mean, the least you're gonna make is $18 an hour. Like, that's like
Seems to be the baseline.
Yeah.
Everything goes up from there.
yeah. But I've worked at jobs that they're paying me like what $600 per hour, $660 or something. That's like what $35 an hour.
Yeah.
Just
One unfortunate thing that I've noticed about myself is the more money I get paid, the more effort I put into the work,
Right.
which, that sounds like a good thing. People would say, well, what are you complaining about? I'm not complaining. It just, if someone pays me X number of dollars, and if it's more than the going rate, then I'm going to put about 5 times the amount of work into it.
Right.
So maybe my increase is like twice what I would be making, but the amount of effort I'm putting into it is like 5 times. So to prepare for a 1-hour class, maybe I'll put like,
2-3 hours of work.
2-3 hours
Yeah.
of work into it.
Yeah.
So I need to organize my time a little bit better. I need to, organize that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's definitely different spectrums of jobs here. Like if you're gonna work at public school, you just show up, open the book. You can plan. A lot of people like public school because they don't have to plan. You have your lesson plan already like laid out for you. You just wake up in the morning, go to school, open your book. But yeah, the more high-paying jobs, definitely you're gonna have to put in work at home.
I like planning my lessons.
Yeah.
I don't like just showing up and looking through the book and saying, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So, but that's just my work ethic.
Yeah. That's why you get paid the big bucks, right?
Not quite. Not quite.
Yep. So, yeah, we can kind of switch gears. So, Vietnam, the politics are, for me, non-existent. I don't know the president. I don't know anything. Like, I like it. I like not being able to have to worry about. I mean, I've seen one demonstration here, and it wasn't against the government. It was against China.
Yeah.
My whole time I was like, wow, San Francisco, there's demonstration every day, like every Friday. So that I like demonstration. I think it's good for people to tell the government what to do. But here it's kind of like nobody really delves too deep, especially foreigners. We're not gonna get involved. So that is something that I like. Just have no worries about politics, but I see American politics every day. How could you not? It's a freaking shit show. Excuse my language.
Keep it family friendly.
So that's the whole. I moved here in 2016. Trump was elected 3 months after I started living here, and everyone was like, I'm leaving. I said, come to Vietnam. And nobody came. But I think it's good to just get away from that. If you turn off your phone, you won't even know.
Yeah, it's nice being in that protective bubble.
Yeah.
But you brought up a point that there are no demonstrations going on in this country. But, there are 2 factors to take into consideration. One is in our country, and David, I don't really know how the political parties are set up in your country, so I won't comment on that, but maybe you can add something. But in our country, we have a built-in sort of rivalry. We have a built-in sort of, one side fighting against the other.
Mm-hmm.
In Vietnam, you have a one-party system. So the idea of one party fighting against another, opposing that party, it's just alien. So that's one thing. The other thing is the economy here is growing rapidly. So when I first came to this country, GDP per capita was, I believe, about $1,500 a month. Now it's about, if I'm not mistaken, last time I checked, I think it was about $2,700 a month, and that's in real terms, not PPP. So the economy has grown quite a bit, and when people are making money, when people see a definite improvement in their lives, they have
no reason
much
to
less
protest.
to complain.
Yeah. I think the next 2 or 3 years for Vietnam are going to be huge now that they've dealt with this pandemic the way they have.
Yeah.
And they were forecasting, I was reading the other day, they're forecasting that Vietnam is to grow 8.7 or 8.8% in 2021 alone. And that's monstrous.
Yeah.
And we were one of 3 countries, or Vietnam was one of 3 countries last year that actually posted a positive growth rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you've got that happening and you've got a government that looks after its people the way it does and has put in the effort and doesn't want to fail, people have no reason to protest. There's no, what are they going to get out of it? So I think that's the benefit they've got here. It also helps that there's one group of people that are in charge. It's not constantly changing based on silly elections and, you know, politics and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's where our countries are different, is we're all from a democratic country where there's more than one party. I mean, in America, there's the two big parties. You get Republicans, Democrats. So it's left versus right, liberal versus conservative. My country, we've got many parties, but they're all on the left. So we've got left-wing parties fighting each other.
There's no conservative party?
There is, but they're far right.
Oh,
very far right. So they're the extreme right. Not to say that they're all like that, it's just that's the way that they are seen.
They're the ones who want to resurrect Paul Kruger and have him run for president.
Most possibly, yeah, probably that. So their voice isn't as loud as what they want it to be. I think they could do a lot more to make it louder in their position. But in South Africa, we've got mostly left-wing political parties, and that's now becoming an issue. You know, there's nobody that's got a voice loud enough to challenge that way of thinking.
Right.
In the US, you've got a good thing where you've got the two parties and they're constantly fighting on the opposite sides of the spectrum, and each side is second guessing itself. But it boils over in the wrong ways. And I think we saw that 2 days ago or 3 days ago with the
Well,
Capitol buildings.
Okay, you're putting this on the party level. I don't really see it that way. I see it as sort of a cultural thing. Because
that too,
the
yeah.
leadership of the Democratic Party and the leadership of the Republican Party, they hang out together, they go to the same social parties, social gatherings, they're friends, they see each other as colleagues, opposites in the political world, but they're basically the same people. Whereas when you go down the ranks,
that's when it starts spreading out a bit more. Yeah.
And in politics in my country, it's taking on sort of like almost like a tribal identity. So for some people who are very, very conservative, some people who belong to the Republican Party and their families have belonged to that party for generations, they will not associate with people who are Democrats, and vice versa. It's the same thing.
It becomes part of their identity.
Yeah. So with some people in my country, if you're a Republican, you will eat this sort of food, you will listen to this sort of music, i.e. country music. You will, be big on hunting and the military and whatever. And then for people, they're opposites on the Democratic side, maybe they'll listen to rap music or whatever it is. So it's becoming like a culture clash. And I think that those people who attacked the Capitol, these are people who feel that their culture is under fire. And so they act in a very desperate and very, very serious way because they feel personally threatened.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's the identity of the individual. And when you start attacking their identity, it becomes, to them it's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
And we need to fight back. And you see the same, I don't know if it's the same here, I haven't really looked at much. Like you said, there isn't many demonstrations, but it's the same in South Africa, where it's an individual's identity. You're South African by identity, but then it starts spreading out, like you said, everybody's the same at the top, but then it starts spreading out towards the bottom where, all right, we're going from identity in terms of political party or whatnot, and it becomes a skin problem. And becomes a race issue. So there are divisions everywhere, and I think it becomes amplified when you've got the media that's amplifying it and pressing their own stories. But it also becomes amplified in the things like the demonstrations, because you've got one side that's fighting against the other side.
Yeah. The last year, it's been horrible to watch, like what's going on. Yeah.
The riots in Portland as well. That was all over the news. It was terrible.
Every day. Yeah, so here we're kind of like people, maybe if they have issues, but they just go to work. Like, I mean, I've talked to people that like Vietnamese born in Vietnam go to America, and then they're like, yeah, I'm coming back, and they come back here, and they're like, they know, and they're like, well, it's not that bad. Like, you could actually live better here. You could work less. You set up a business and then just like live your life.
I just want to add something there. It's so much easier to live a fulfilling life when you don't have the outside politics and the outside nonsense. And being here, that's something you don't get exposed to by just the Vietnamese media. Being, you're not walking past someone who's wanting to insult you because you're wearing the wrong hat.
Right.
Back at home, that's different. I'm sure you guys could say the same thing. It's part of your identity. Whereas being here, you're all together, and there's no reason to not like someone because of a belief that they have. And I think it's so much nicer here because you're not constantly bombarded by why you're doing the wrong thing or why you're thinking the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
But then, to be fair, we don't speak Vietnamese.
No, we don't.
We don't really know what's going on in their world.
Yeah.
So, my wife, for example, she has told me about the conflicts between people from the south versus people from the north, and where people from the center of the country fit in, and some of the socio-economic things going on, the sort of the rifts between the emerging middle class and people in the countryside. So, I mean, there are domestic issues that we don't know about because of the language barrier. But I would agree about what you said, someone's not going to insult you based on the hat you're wearing or something like that, because these differences are not political differences in Vietnam. Maybe they're cultural ones, or maybe they're economic ones, or maybe they're just, based on geography, but they're not quite the same as in our countries.
And as expat, we're in the expat bubble. Like they have cars driving down the street with a speaker, maybe spitting propaganda, but we would never even know it because we're just like, oh, that's a cool speaker on that car.
It's making a lot of noise.
Yeah. Or like sign. I mean, there's a lot of pictures up, and we can't read it. Like, I mean, we can't get too deep, but I'm sure people have a lot of very strong opinions about different political things that's happening. And it's, every country's got corruption. You can't say there's not a corrupt country when it comes to politics or like the government. Like America's one of the top, I would guess. It's just because I'm from there.
Well, but there's a little difference because there's corruption here and there's corruption in America, there's corruption in Korea, there's corruption everywhere, but the visibility is different. So in America, it's behind closed doors. Big corporations are doing things with politicians and government offices and stuff. What's happening. So in America, when they have a shutdown for coronavirus and all the small businesses have to shut their doors, but Walmart stays open, kind of makes you think, kind of makes you wonder what's going on. But in Vietnam, when you see corruption, it's small stuff. Like, a little money here, a little money there, and it's very apparent. So this creates a false perception, a false idea that maybe Vietnam is more corrupt. I don't think it's more corrupt. It's just a question of how apparent it is, how obvious it is. Actually, I think America's far more corrupt.
Yeah.
The American economy is a lot bigger than the Vietnamese economy, so there's more incentive to take and keep money that's not yours. Yeah.
Big level, higher level. Because here, like, you run a red light, cop pulls you over, you don't have a driver's license, you give him $10, and he's like, go ahead, right?
Yeah.
America, they would never. They'd tow your car, you might go to jail, you get at least $300 to maybe $1,000 fine. Like, here it's like, here it's $10, but, So it's definitely at a higher level. Like, there, it's already set up to drain your pockets. But opening a business here, a lot of people tell me it's much easier than America.
Well, but it depends on the kind of business you're doing,
like
and
a
your
restaurant.
location and stuff. Well,
standard restaurant or something like that. Like back home in America, like San Francisco, you want to open a bar, you're gonna need like tons of cash, bro. You're gonna
probably
need
about 2 million.
yeah, you're gonna need
Really? Is that high?
You're gonna need
Well-
an alcohol license. I don't know how much it costs, but it probably at least $500,000 to
Yeah.
just get your alcohol
And
license.
you know, when you set up a business, you have to have a cash fund to keep operations going before you turn a profit. So, like, if you want to buy a McDonald's franchise, if you want to buy a McDonald's franchise, for example, suppose the franchise is $700,000 or whatever it is. I don't remember what it was, but they also tell you you have to have X number of dollars in reserve to keep the thing going, because you put down that much money. That's your sunk cost. So how much time does it take for you to recoup your investment? You have to have money. You're paying people salaries, you're paying for your equipment, you're paying your taxes, you're paying a lot of things. Now, you said it's easier to set up a business here than in America. In some ways, yes, in some ways, no. So I would say that one thing that's very cool about Vietnam is people, you know, as I alluded to earlier, they're a little bit casual about the rules sometimes. I know various places that are operating without any sort of licenses, whereas in America that's impossible. So here it's a little bit easier to skirt the rules because they're not as rigidly enforced.
And a lot of people like, I got friends that own restaurants, and they're like, yeah, I started my restaurant with $10,000, or like some like $10,000 wouldn't even get you in the door anywhere in America. Like so definitely people are coming here to like open a Mexican restaurant. Like they're living their dream. They got one restaurant, they make another restaurant, and so it's, if you want to start a business here, I would say it's possible.
Also, rents are cheaper.
It's definitely
Way
worth
cheaper.
it as well, because there's a huge tourist market in the major cities, and your Hanoi's and your Ho Chi Minh City. So if you're making Mexican restaurants or whatever, and you're aiming at tourists, you will get the customers, because you look at us, we're sitting here, 3 foreigners, and we obviously are going to eat that food because it tastes good. So there's a huge benefit, and especially in the next sort of 5 years, I think there's going to be very, very lucrative.
Yeah. And now everything's like, you can order just like Uber Eats or whatever. We have Grab food. You just order. If you want Mexican food, you just open your phone, boom, you got Mexican food.
It's too easy. It's way too easy.
Anything you
way
want.
too simple.
This is something I really love about Vietnam. In America, I don't know about in your country in South Africa, but in America, you only get Chinese food delivered and pizza delivered. And I guess now with coronavirus, you get more things delivered. I don't know. I haven't been in my country for a while. But here, if you want a milk tea, it will be delivered. If you want just some small little thing, it will be delivered. It's really convenient. It's really lovely.
I think just talking about deliveries, I'm going to add on to what you're saying. There is quite a few delivery apps in the US now. I think there's Uber Eats, which is what Damien just said. It more depends on the restaurant that you want to order from. So you can get the food. It's like if you go to a restaurant here and you see the little Grab sign or the Vietnam app sign or something, they deliver through those apps. Whereas with the US, they might be less inclined to allow deliveries through that, where they want more foot traffic in the door or something like that. So you have the food deliveries, and it's the same in my country where we have the food deliveries. It all depends on the restaurant or the place that you want to order. Do they allow it or not? That's the bigger difference here.
Yeah. Well, I was working for, what was it? Grubhub? No, Postmates. And you could go to restaurants that are not with the service. You could get, like, say you want to go to a nice steakhouse, and you could go there and you order the food. You could get anything. But here you could do that too. They have Grab food, they have Grab ship. So as long, like even groceries, you go to the grocery shop.
It's
You
so
spend
convenient. Yeah.
Yeah.
money and they'll bring it to your doorstep, bro. Like you, it's very modern here.
Well,
Like,
one thing that makes that sort of business model, I don't know, more efficient, more likely to actually happen, is this is a very densely populated area.
Mm.
So in our country, and I'm assuming in your country as well, people are spread out.
Yeah.
So it's not as viable because someone has to drive for a lengthy period of time to drop something off and then drive back to get the next order. But here, maybe someone is ordering something from one street away or 2 streets away. So the workers will spend less time doing the delivery, which means that, from a cost-benefit analysis, the businesses can service more customers, they can serve more people, and they're still paying the same wage. So it just works better.
Yeah.
It's all motorbike. It's like
Yeah.
once that food's done, motorbike throws it in their little cooler, boom, it's wherever you are. It's just fast. They don't have to like look for parking,
Yeah.
traffic. I mean, when it's super rainy, yeah, it'll take a little longer, but yeah, it's very convenient. Yeah, the modern, like, you order a car to your house anytime, like, so the apps here are, I say, equivalent to what you have in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not even faster.
Well, when I left South Africa, we weren't using the apps yet.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
using the telephone. We
Yeah.
had to phone them
Wow.
and order the food. Yeah.
Wow.
You can go look on the internet, go and see the menu, and then go get their phone number and you have to call.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
was always really awkward, especially for introverted people. They don't want to talk to some
Yeah.
random person on the phone. So it was a bit more difficult
Yeah.
back when I was at home.
You have to
Yeah.
use your voice.
I don't like using
Cheese pizza, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean here, yeah, anything delivered. Yeah, it's really cool. So let's see. So we're all teachers. Well, teach
Allegedly.
English.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Apparently, that's
we
what
get
we
paid.
do.
We get paid for teaching.
Sometimes we get paid to pretend to teach because the students pretend to learn.
Yeah.
But I let's see. Did I teach back home? I didn't really teach back in America. Not like here. So Nick will probably be the best person to ask this question.
Yeah.
When you're teaching Western students compared to Vietnamese or I would say Eastern students, is there much difference? Is it more difficult or?
Yeah, I would say that there are some very great differences, and these very great differences are based on the culture. So in the West, really, when you look at it, there are 2 giant schools of thought with respect to learning. So in the West, we have the Socratic tradition. In the East, you have the Confucianist tradition. And these traditions are very much at loggerheads with each other. So Socrates, his method of education was by asking questions. So the Socratic method is to ask questions. You see a phenomenon, you wonder what's going on. So you ask questions, you try to determine what's happening. Knowledge is acquired through a very aggressive form of asking questions, researching, and so on. That is very different from the system created by Confucius. So in his day, China was not a unified place. It was a series of warring kingdoms that were fighting against each other. And his main thought was how to create a quiet, peaceful, tranquil society. And he really pushed education as a means of finding the best people to fill government positions, to sort of make peace. And the learning style that he was responsible for was rote learning. So you would sit for the imperial examination, they'd lock you in a room for, I don't remember how many days it was, I think it was like 9 days. They'd leave food outside and water and stuff, and you would sit in that room, that cell, literally a cell. You would write your essays, you would do your work, and then you would emerge from your cell, you would hand in your work, and they judged you on the quality of your ability to remember what you had been taught.
Right.
So, did you master the information?
Yeah.
they weren't judging you based on your ability to extrapolate. They weren't judging you on your ability to build off of what you had been taught. They wanted to make sure you knew the laws, you knew the information.
Yeah.